Okay, sorry for the shakiness here. I thought I'd give you a little break from the whiteboard, and because I'm not going to be showing anything new on this video, we're going to practice some more with the negative numbers. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a chart that I keep that kind of can help you maybe if you want to write it this way, that you can keep going back and looking at to do these problems. Because the two steps, is something that you're going to have to practice. You can even look up integers, practice integers, adding and subtracting integers, and find video or you can find videos of math antics on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and type in math antics and integers, or if you go to Khan Academy, spelled with a K, Khan, you can find some videos on integers on that. If you go to Google and hit in practice adding and subtracting integers worksheets, free worksheets, and type in free worksheets with that, a lot of times they'll give you some practice and give you the key as well so that you can check your answers. But I wanted to do the ones that we did yesterday, and then also do some new ones and show you this little chart. Here's my paper here that I'm working on, and so this way you can look and say, this is how I check each one and can go. And what I want you to do is check your assignment ones that you turned in. These are then there, and then we're going to do some more practice besides these, and then you'll have a little assignment at the end of this. But basically, I put a little thing here. If they're both positive or both negative, you're going to add the numbers, okay? And then we keep the sign the same. If they're one of each, whether it doesn't matter what order they're in, but if they're one of each, then you're going to subtract the numbers. And so I'm going to keep referring back to this. Now, none of these have the double signs on them. The ones I do next will, but these are the ones that you had as the assignment. And so we've already gotten rid of the double signs, and we're going to just look at them. So here's an example of one that is a negative number. And then if I cover everything up that I just said, the -7, then I'm left with a positive 18. So where one's negative and one's positive, I go over here and subtract the numbers. See, I use my little chart and say subtract the numbers because one's positive, one's negative. So I'm going to subtract the numbers. So I'm going to do 18 minus 7. Okay, 18 minus 7. And I get 11. Okay. And you keep the sign the same as the bigger number. So the bigger one's positive, so it's positive 11. Okay. Then this one here, so this is a negative 24. I know you are used to seeing this as minus 24, but think about this. If this 12 is not got a negative in front of it, and I cover everything up but the 12, that is a positive 12. Well, then if I know that's positive and cover it up, and all I have left then, let's see, I'm covering up more than just the 12, but if I'm covering up the 12, then it's a negative 24. So I have a positive 12 and a negative 24. So one of each. So I subtract the numbers. One of each, subtract the numbers. So I'm going to do 24 minus 12. And I get 12. And because one of them's negative, or the higher one's negative, it's a negative 12. This is actually kind of hard to do. I'm just going to have to look at the paper, not the video. It's like I'm getting car sick driving, doing that. I'm not driving, by the way, right now either. That'd be pretty talented if I could do negative numbers and drive at the same time. Anyway, this one here, this is a -3 and a -8. So they're both negatives. So I'm going to add the numbers. So I'm going to add 8 plus 3 and get 11. And because they're both negative, it stays negative. So it's negative 11. Okay. Then this one, we don't have to make harder than it is, but it's a positive and a positive, so we're going to add the numbers. But we already know how to do 16 plus 37, but it does fall into the rule where we add the numbers, and so we get 53. Okay, so I just added the numbers. They stay positive because they're positive. Okay, and this one, like I said, we can do this one. We've learned since elementary. But if we're looking at it like this rule, the 8's positive, the 5 is negative, so they're one of each, and so I subtract the numbers. So 8 minus 5 is 3, And because the bigger one's positive, it's a positive 3. Okay, and that leads us into this one. Same kind of problem as this. One of them's positive, one of them's negative. So I'm going to subtract the numbers, but I'm going to have to flip places. Okay, so I do it like this, and I get 21. Okay, and because the bigger one is positive, or bigger one is negative, it's a negative 21. So check your answers. 11, negative 12, negative 11, 53, 3, and negative 21. And then just kind of go through. If you need to pause or repeat some of these to see what I did, do that. But I'd make a little chart like this. Now, I'll show you what I did for these, because now what I did is I mixed both steps together, meaning we're going to have to do the first step to get rid of the double signs. And then we go through the 2A, 2B, meaning 2A, if they're both positive or both negative, you're going to add them. And if they're 2B, if they're one positive and one negative, then you're going to subtract them. So I just always refer back to these two steps. Here's the step, here's the second step. Now, what you can do is on an assignment like this, as you see, I've got 11 problems written here. I'm just going to go through first and do this first step for all of them before I even start working each problem. If I just go through and get rid of any double signs I see, like right here, this is going to become 7 minus 13, because a plus minus becomes minus. There's no double signs on this one. Okay, because there's no sign right by another sign. Okay, there's numbers in between these signs. Same thing here, there's no double signs. Right here there is. This part right here is not a double sign, it's just one sign. But here you got negative, negative. So that becomes positive. I'm just going through getting rid of the double signs. That's a single sign, but a plus minus becomes minus. Okay, there's no double signs on this one. No double signs on that one. No double signs on that one because they're separated by numbers. No double signs. Here's a double sign, it's a plus minus. So that's going to become 8 minus 4. And then right here you got two signs by each other, so it's going to be negative 5. And because they're both negative, it's negative 5 becomes a plus 12. Okay? So do that first step if you want to on all of them, so that you're not kind of getting lost in the shuffle. And if you miss one to do a double sign and you notice it later, that's fine. You can do it then. But I would go through and try to notice your double signs first. Now we're going to go through and see if one's positive and one's negative, or if they're both negative or something. So this one, you got a positive 7, negative 13. So that means we're using this one. We're going to subtract. So I'm going to do 13 minus 7. And I do it off to the side so that I can flip places. I get 6. And the bigger number is negative, so it's a negative 6. Okay. This one, they're both negative, negative and negative. So I add the numbers. So 7 plus 3 is 10. If you can do it in your head, that's fine. And because they're both negative, it stays negative. And it's negative 10. Okay. This one's a positive and negative. So because you got a positive and negative, you're going to subtract the numbers. So I'm going to do 14 minus 7. Get 7. And the bigger one is negative, so it's a negative 7. Okay, this one here, you got a negative and a positive, so it's also subtraction. So subtract them. And I know I'm flipping places here, but that's okay. And the bigger one's positive, so it's a positive 1. And just to check yourself, if you were at negative 3 and you added 4, you went down. You started at negative 3 and you went up 4, it put you at 1 on the number line. Okay. These both are negative, so they fall into this one. I'm gonna add them. 10 plus 4 is 14, and because they're both negative, the sign stays the same. Okay, remember on this rule, the sign stays the same. This rule, the bigger one, you keep the sign of the bigger one. This one, they're both positive, so it falls into this. Now, like I said, we already know how to, you don't have to make it harder than it is, but we already know what 7 plus 4 is. It's 11, and they're both positive, so it stays positive 11. Okay. This one, I got a positive and a negative, so I'm going to subtract the numbers. Okay. The bigger number is negative, so I'm going to make it negative 41. Okay, that's negative 41. Negative and positive, subtract them. I get 16. and the bigger one is positive, so it's a positive 16. If you notice, I'm circling my answers because you're going to want to get in practice of doing that because the problems get bigger now. And when you see a lot of numbers and I'm having to pick out which one's your answer, or where you're grading them yourself the next day. Now, these are notes, but when you're doing your assignments, you want to know what your final answer was. So make sure you're maybe getting in the practice of circling your final answer. This one, we already know 7 minus 5 is 2, but let's put it in a rule. That's a positive, that's a negative. So it goes into this rule. So we subtract the numbers, and it stays the sign of the bigger number. Okay. 8 minus 4, same thing, a positive and a negative. We're going to subtract the numbers. So 8 minus 4 is 4, and the bigger number is positive, so it's a positive 4. But see, it started out as a double sign. Then you changed it, and then it just became an 8 minus 4. Okay. This one is a negative and a positive, so it's subtraction. And I will say most of those end up like this. Most do end up where you're subtracting the numbers. Okay, but, it can be both. So 12 minus 5 is 7. Okay, and the bigger number is positive, so it's a positive 7. So hopefully that gives you some practice, and you may want to just put at the top of your assignment that you start this two-step process. And I know it's a little blurry. I don't know if it's trying to focus or something. But I put get rid of the double sign, so you can go through and do that through your assignment. And then I made a 2A, 2B. If they're both positive or both negative, you add them and keep the sign the same. If they're one of each, no matter what order they're in, you subtract them and keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I've got your assignment, and it's already laid out. And so I'm going to leave it there for just a moment. And if it's not long enough and you didn't get them right, just pause the video. I think there's only 10. Yeah, there's 10. Let me hold it still. That way you're not getting dizzy in case you're driving and doing these. Actually, don't be doing that. But here's the assignment. So it's negative 4 plus 8. Okay, negative 3 minus 12. 7 plus negative 10. Negative 3 minus negative 7. 13 minus 46. 8 plus 4. Negative 3 plus negative 15. Negative 15 plus 42. 8 minus 3, and negative 5 minus negative 12. So go through, I would do your double signs first, and then start the second step, okay? All right, and then you'll take a photo of your work, upload it. This will be the last assignment of the week. This one will post on April the 2nd, Thursday, and then you will have until that night, Thursday night, to turn it in. And Fridays, there is no school, so there won't be a daily assignment, but I'll be here answering questions. If you have one, send it, email, putting in grades and trying to kind of catch up with some of the first week. Great job on the first week, everybody, and have a good weekend.